I'm here in a friend's kitchen, and I'd like to introduce you to Barbara Hayes. Barbie and I have known each other about 9 years, and she's a highly literate, experienced special education parent and advocate. Barbie, thank you so much for agreeing for this interview. Tell folks a little bit about yourself.
Oh, let's see. I am married almost 30 years. We have 6 children, 2 of which are dyslexic, dysgraphic, ADHD, have language processing disorders, sensory motor integration dysfunction. With one of them, the kids' age ranges from 12 to almost 28.
Now, you know that this website has a focus of non-lawyer representation and the problems of parents finding affordable representation for due process hearings, appeals, and so forth. Have you had any problems and experience in that area?
Absolutely. Between 3rd and 4th grade, we accidentally moved out of the Milford School District and into Cape Henlopen District by about 2 blocks. Now we're in Cape District, and I thought it couldn't be any worse than Milford. This kid's got to get something. He didn't even make promotion criteria between 3rd and 4th grade, but Milford promoted him anyway because he was an LD child who was going to get services. He would have an IEP, so they promoted him. We come into Cape District, and Cape District said, we don't think he's LD. We're going to take away his IEP.
He was losing eligibility?
They declassified him. I got a notice of a meeting inviting me to review his IEP. When I contacted the Office of Civil Rights, and I said that, I wanted to file something. We began, they were going to do an investigation.
Into what?
Into the districts denying him special education or 504, because at the time they wouldn't even give him a 504 for his ADHD. The district OCR became involved. He told me about an attorney who said he worked with special education cases. Mm-hmm. He looked at the case on a Friday afternoon. I took my sister-in-law with me. We spread everything out on the table, and he said, what they've done is illegal, and I'm going to file for due process on Monday. Had me sign a contract for a contingency that he would pay me, he would get paid when he wins the case. He said, it's a no-brainer. It's a hands down, you can win this. I'll take care of it on Monday. That was the end of October. And I waited. On November 7th, the school district had an IEP meeting, or they called it another meeting for parent concerns, and decided to provide him services under a 504 plan under the direction of the district supervisor who came to the meeting. And she said, well, okay, he didn't really not make it through 3rd grade, so they'll give it to him. So we fought all year. By the end of the year, OCR came out with a determination that the district had violated a lot of things.
Thread, Barbie. Was an attorney involved during that year?
He never followed through. I waited for that attorney. He never followed through. By March, I stormed in his office because he wouldn't answer the phone calls, wouldn't answer the letters. I got secretaries telling me he's out to lunch. So I showed up at his office and waited for him to come out of his elevator carrying his McDonald's lunch into his office, and I followed him in. And I said, what happened? Why did you not follow through? He said, because he was told by his bosses that it was no longer politically correct to work in special education field. It wasn't financially feasible because these due process cases cost too much money. So he said, you can do this. Go file for due process. If you need me, you know where I am. So I continued.
What year are we talking about?
This was 2000.
Just for the purpose of the tape, my husband Ray Aarons is doing the videos for other voices on the blog, so that's who you just heard.
Yeah, it was actually 2001. In the spring of 2001, we had an end of the year 504 plan meeting. And I said, so where is my son now? He had failed 5 out of 6 marking periods in every subject. The last marking period, the louder I got, when the decision came from OCR, the district passed him straight A's. And the principal said to me, well, what do you want? I said, I want my son to read. And they said, well, he's reading at the 4th grade level. I said, no, he's being instructed at the 4th grade level, but I'm sure he's not reading at 3rd grade level. I want to test it. They agreed to test him. Then I went to the school and they did what's called a star reading test. And his teacher to be said flat out, "Oh no, my gosh, he's only a second grade reader. He's going into 5th grade. We're going to have to do something."
So in terms of this saga, and I know it's a very long saga, which we can't hear those pieces about for this interview at least, but in looking at where you started, you said 2001?
I started in
2000.
2001. This was the spring of 2001. I filed when they absolutely refused to write an IEP at that IEP meeting.
And you filed for OCR or for a due process
At this time, I filed for a due process hearing.
And who represented you?
Me.
How many times have you filed for due process, and how many times have you represented yourself, if you can remember?
I filed for due process 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times.
For how many children?
1.
Okay. So with those experiences, why did you keep doing them yourself and not find another attorney?
I have looked for an attorney. I have made, for the first due process hearing, after the first attorney turned me down and negated his contract with me, I went to, Delaware has 3 phone books. I went through every single phone book and called every single attorney's office, every firm, and asked them if they did special education cases. I was told not only do they not do special education cases because they're not experienced or educated themselves in that area, but they work for school districts, therefore they cannot represent parents because they represent another school district. Even though it wasn't my district, they wouldn't take it. I was told, again, feasibly, economically, not feasible, politically, not good for their career.
Now,
lawyers told me. I even talked to the disability law program, and the attorney told me that he now sits on due process hearing panels as chairperson, so now it was a conflict of interest for him to represent a parent, even though he's in Wilmington and I was in Lower Delaware.
And is he a federally funded protection and advocacy?
Yes.
For Delaware?
Disability law program, yeah, is supposed to be taking care of representing kids in due process hearings.
So what do the parents in Delaware do, if you know, when they are not as educated and as experienced as you are, and they need a due process hearing? What do they do for representation?
I have seen through experience, through going through researching cases for myself for my own representation, I've seen the cases come out of the ones that are public cases out of DOE, and half of them have representation from attorneys out of state. I know of ones that have gotten attorneys from D.C. I personally had to find an attorney for an appeal in Baltimore, or they represent them themselves, or cases are settled. And the majority of cases with attorneys are settled before they get to court or for a hearing.
So, in terms of the severity of the problem of how parents, middle class and less, even upper middle class and less, finding a lawyer who is experienced and willing to do a special education due process hearing and appeals if they become necessary, how serious a problem is that in your experience?
It's extremely serious. I have not been able to find any attorney in Delaware to represent a parent. And one attorney I found who thought he was going to do it as a favor to his client, he was her attorney for all her other legal affairs, took on the case. Halfway through the hearing, he had to dismiss himself because it was so draining on him physically, it made him sick. He couldn't continue. The abuse that the attorneys take, that the pro se parents take from the panelists, is unbelievable. I mean, to deny their rights even in due process. And the way they're treated, belittled, berated, accused of all kinds of things that these parents really aren't prepared for. They aren't prepared.
I think we're going to need a second interview, Barbie. Thanks so much. This is a very special lady, and I hope that you found some insight and some new information from her first-hand experiences with the special education due process system. Bye-bye. Thanks, Barbie.